Entitled Woman Storms into a Busy Clinic and Strikes a Calm, Respected Black Veterinarian in Front of Staff and Clients, screaming that she deserves better service, completely unaware, the quiet man. Watching from the corner isn't just any visitor. He's the elusive Korean Mafia boss, a strategic billionaire feared across continents, and he's been secretly obsessed with the vet's kindness, intelligence, and unshakable strength for months. What starts as public humiliation turns into a ruthless power play as the woman who threw the first blow realizes she just attacked the one person he'd burned the world down to protect. That punch, that humiliating public slap across the face of a decorated black veteran, wasn't just a moment of uncontrolled rage from a woman named Vanessa in a sterile clinic waiting room. No, that's what the cameras saw. That's the surface-level drama. The reality, the true brutal mechanics of that specific second were far more intricate, infinitely more dangerous. That slap wasn't merely an assault. It was a cosmic tripwire pulled by a fool utterly oblivious to the true, terrifying architecture of her own life, igniting a chain reaction set to consume everything she thought she knew. Here's what they didn't tell you. That single act, born of petty entitlement, condemned her not to legal repercussions or social scorn, but to something far, far worse. The unleashed, silent wrath of a man who owned her in every way that truly mattered. A man she didn't even know existed. You see, the world operates on power, not on justice, certainly not on fairness. This isn't a story about a bad temper or racial tensions. Those are merely the shallow ripples. This is about what happens when a small-minded queen dares to disrespect a pawn, unaware that her very existence is merely a chess piece on a board controlled by an unseen king. A king who views her not as a person, but as a prized possession. This, my friend, is a masterclass in the Machiavellian dance, where every perceived slight is an existential threat to dominance, and every player, no matter how minor, serves a larger, more sinister purpose. If you crave understanding of the invisible forces that truly govern our lives, the raw power dynamics obscured by everyday narratives, then you belong right here. The veteran, a quiet giant, simply endured the indignity. His stoicism, his profound restraint, was misinterpreted as weakness by Vanessa. Big mistake, monumental. She saw a man, exhausted, perhaps a little broken, waiting patiently. She saw an opportunity to vent, to assert her imagined superiority over someone she deemed beneath her. She never once considered that his quiet strength wasn't a lack of power, but a conscious decision not to wield it, a choice only the truly powerful can afford. But her action, it wasn't just to him, it was through him. It was an affront to the delicate balance maintained by a man whose entire universe revolved around the silent, undisputed ownership of Vanessa. He was not her lover. That's too simplistic, too emotional. He was her proprietor, her guardian, her silent, terrifying master. His name? Yang. A name whispered, not spoken, in the back alleys of Seoul, in the polished boardrooms of global conglomerates, and in the blood-soaked annals of a criminal empire so vast, so intertwined with legitimate power, that calling him merely a mafia boss feels quaint, insulting to his true reach. Jiang didn't love Vanessa. He obsessed over her. It was a cold, calculating, possessive fixation fueled by an incident from years past, an unpayable debt, a life signed away in blood and fear. She was his. And to strike a man, any man, in a public space, to draw any kind of unwanted attention, especially to herself, was an act of profound disrespect, an unforgivable stain on his property. She had no idea. She thought she was just having a bad day, pushing back against what she perceived as an injustice in a clinic. Ignorance, you see, is not bliss. It's a death sentence when you're tangling with unseen gods. She had no idea the threads she was tugging. They ran deep. They ran red. You think your world operates on justice? On fairness? Cute. A comforting lie. The truth is, it runs on debt, on dominion, on the silent, unforgiving contracts scribbled in shadow, paid in flesh and blood. Years ago, her father, a man swallowed whole by ambition he couldn't manage, gambled with the wrong people. Zhang's people. A development deal gone sour, a loan shark with a smile colder than a Siberian winter. The interest compounded. Fast. Impossible. And when the principal became a mountain too high to climb, when every asset was stripped, every last shred of dignity flayed, there was only one thing left to offer. His daughter. Not as a slave, not explicitly. That's for cheap thrillers. But as a living collateral, a promise, a symbol that he, Zhang, owned a piece of their very essence. Vanessa. Her very existence became a testament to his reach, his absolute dominion. She was a trophy, a carefully curated, exquisitely maintained asset, a constant breathing reminder of a family's ruin, a father's desperate failure. And she, the trophy, had just slapped a man, publicly. She thought it was a moment of righteous anger, a small act of defiance against a perceived slight. You, watching this, probably even think she was justified. But this isn't a sitcom. This is the underbelly. This is where consequences aren't merely inconvenient. They're catastrophic. She didn't just slap the veteran. She slapped Zhang. She slapped the unspoken code. She stained his property. And that, in Zhang's world, is an act of war. A declaration of utter contempt. Unacceptable. Utterly. The veteran? He knew. He always knew. He wasn't a random civilian. He was a cog, albeit a small one, in Yang's sprawling apparatus. His job that day was mundane, yes. But his loyalty was absolute. He saw the slap not as an attack on himself, but as an unwitting assault on the man he served. He felt the ripple. He knew the cost. His silence wasn't fear of her. It was the discipline of a soldier, a quiet understanding of the immutable laws governing his universe. He was simply waiting for the inevitable hammer to fall. If the casual cruelty of this reality chills you, if you suspect there's more to the world than meets the eye, then join us. We dissect the unseen architects of power, the real forces that pull the strings. Every week, another hidden truth unmasked. Subscribe. Yang, remember, doesn't love. He possesses. His response wouldn't be rage, not in the way you understand it. It would be a cold, calculated correction. A reassertion of ownership, a reaffirmation of his absolute control. Perhaps you think he'd send a thug, a brutal enforcer. Too clumsy, too loud. Yang operates with surgical precision. He's a puppeteer, not a street brawler. The veteran wouldn't be punished for being slapped, no. He'd be punished for allowing the public display, for the stain on Yang's image, however indirect. And Vanessa? Oh, Vanessa. Her life, the one she thought was hers, would begin to unravel. Slowly, insidiously, a lost job, a rejected application. Friends suddenly distant, cold, doors closing everywhere, a suffocating pressure, unseen, unheard, but undeniably real. She'd feel the walls closing in, the air growing thin, without ever understanding why. This is Yang's genius. He doesn't need to touch you to break you. He simply pulls the threads of your existence until you're nothing but a frayed, desperate mess, crawling back to the only place you feel a terrifying, suffocating sense of belonging. His dominion. You, sitting there, scrolling through your curated feeds. You believe in laws, in systems, in due process. Yang laughs at your quaint notions. His law is fear. His system is absolute loyalty. His process is pain, administered with the delicacy of a ghost. He doesn't move mountains. He moves the ground under the mountains. He doesn't break bones. He breaks spirits. He doesn't make threats. He delivers inevitability. And Vanessa, poor, ignorant Vanessa, had just provoked the architect of her own quiet, creeping doom. This isn't just about one man, one woman, one slap. This is about the hidden operating system of global power. The reality is, every nation, every major corporation, every glittering institution has its Jangs. Men, or sometimes women, whose influence is so pervasive, so deeply embedded that they don't need titles or public recognition. They are the infrastructure. They are the silent partners in every significant deal, the unseen hand shaping every major policy. Their wealth isn't measured in bank accounts, but in the unpayable debts owed to them, in the lives they control, in the futures they dictate. A terrifying truth, isn't it? You scoff. You say, conspiracy theory? Fine, live in your bubble. But the next time you see someone fall inexplicably from grace, someone whose life suddenly spirals into an abyss for no apparent reason, ask yourself, was it truly bad luck? Or was it the unseen consequence of a violation no one else could even perceive? Was it a single, ignorant act, like Vanessa's slap, that tipped an invisible, monstrous balance? The world, my friend, is a chess game, and most of us are merely pawns, or worse, the pieces that get swept off the board without a second thought, our existence deemed a mere inconvenience. Vanessa's slap wasn't just a slap. It was a tremor, a tiny, insignificant tremor in a carefully constructed edifice of fear and ownership. But even the smallest tremor can trigger an avalanche. Her little rebellion, her brief moment of imagined freedom, was nothing more than a child's tantrum against a titan. A titan who was now very, very calmly turning his gaze towards her. The veteran, his face a mask of practiced indifference, merely registered the gravity. He wasn't a victim. He was an observer, a prophet of the coming storm. He knew what Vanessa did not, that the worst punishments are those you never see coming, those that dismantle your reality from the inside out. Jang never yells. He never threatens with a knife. He simply removes the foundations of your world. He makes your existence impossible without ever laying a finger on you. This is the mark of true power, you see, the ability to destroy without touching, to render null without effort. It is the power of a god, not a gangster. And Vanessa, she thought she was just living. She thought she was navigating the mundane indignities of daily life. She thought she had choices. Every breath she took, every step she made was an illusion of autonomy, granted by a man who considered her his property. Her identity, her future, her very will, all leased. And the lease was now being revoked, not with a bang, but with the quiet, suffocating sigh of a door slowly closing, forever. A life, once tethered to an invisible leash, now about to be snapped, leaving her adrift in a sea of his making, with no land in sight. She'd tried to assert her agency, a fatal mistake. Her very self was a construct, built upon Yang's investment, his protection, his ownership. She was a bird in a gilded cage. And she'd just pecked the hand that fed her. Not out of malice, but pure, unadulterated ignorance. A luxury ignorance that she could no longer afford. The bill, long overdue, was about to be presented, and the interest, accumulated over years of silent dominion, would be astronomical. Her punishment wouldn't be quick. It would be a slow, agonizing process of systematic erasure, a chilling demonstration of what happens when you dare to believe you own your own life, when in fact, someone else holds the deed. Her punishment wouldn't be quick. It would be a slow, agonizing process of systematic erasure, a chilling demonstration of what happens when you dare to believe you own your own life, when in fact, someone else holds the deed. The audacity. You think you possess agency. You believe your decisions are your own. A lie, a beautiful, dangerous lie. Zhang didn't need to send thugs. He didn't need to brandish a weapon. He had something far more potent, leverage, ultimate, undeniable leverage over every single facet of her existence. Her credit lines? Gone. Her professional network? Severed. Every contact, every supposed friend, suddenly afflicted with amnesia regarding Vanessa's name. A digital ghost. That's what she would become. Her life, meticulously built brick by brick, would simply dissolve. Poof, like morning mist in the sun. This isn't about revenge, you see. It's about a declaration. A statement of absolute, unassailable dominion. It's about demonstrating that when you play in Jiang's world, your very reality is his to define, to sculpt, to unmake. And this isn't some far-fetched fantasy. This is the truth of power, hidden in plain sight. It's the whisper behind the curtain of every major institution, every grand narrative we're sold. If understanding these hidden mechanisms, the invisible chains that bind us, truly captivates you, if you refuse to miss the uncomfortable depth beneath the polished surface, then you already know why these stories are essential. You belong right here. Vanessa, poor, deluded Vanessa, would soon discover the full weight of this reality. Her phone, that lifeline, would cease to connect. Her apartment, once her sanctuary, would have its locks changed. Her bank accounts, those digital reflections of her hard work, would simply empty. Not through theft, mind you, but through legitimate, bureaucratic maneuvers that would make her head spin. Legal filings, obscure clauses in contracts she'd signed but never truly read. Debt collection notices for phantom charges. An avalanche of paper, each sheet a shard of ice, cutting away at her existence. How do you fight an enemy that isn't even physically present? An enemy that operates through the very systems designed to protect you? You don't. You drown. Slowly, painfully, watching your own world disassemble around you, piece by agonizing piece. Yang, the puppet master, would simply pull the strings. Every connection, every resource she ever relied upon was merely a conduit, a temporary loan from his empire. And now the loan was due, with devastating interest. He didn't just own her. He owned the very air she breathed, the ground she walked on, the digital space she occupied. Every perceived freedom was merely permission, granted by him, and now that permission was rescinded. Will you still argue for free will, or will you concede that most of what we call choice is just the longest leash in the kennel? Think about it. Really think. How much of your freedom depends on systems you don't control, on access that can be revoked with a single, silent command? This is the chilling mirror Jiang held up to Vanessa, the illusion of control shattered by the reality of ownership. Her life was never hers. It was a projection, and now the projector was off. But the silence was the real killer. No threats, no angry calls, just the void, the absolute, unyielding absence of her former life. She'd search for explanation, for someone to scream at, to beg. She'd find only locked doors, vacant stares, and the cold, institutional voice of automated services repeating the same impossible denials. We cannot find an account under that name. Your access has been terminated. Your request cannot be processed. Imagine that. Imagine waking up to find your entire digital footprint, your history, your memories, your professional identity simply vanished, erased from the global ledger. This isn't just economic ruin. It's an existential crisis, a philosophical assault on selfhood. Because who are you, really, when every external validation of your existence has been meticulously dismantled? When the world no longer remembers your name? It's a masterclass in psychological warfare, a whisper campaign against your sanity. Doubt creeps in. Did I ever truly exist? Was it all a dream? Yang understood this deeply. The ultimate weapon isn't brute force, it's radical isolation. Stripping away the social fabric until all that remains is a terrified, questioning mind, staring into an abyss of its own making. Or so it seems. But the abyss, dear viewer, wasn't hers. It was Jiang's meticulously crafted void, designed to swallow her whole. He didn't want her dead, That's too easy, too merciful. He wanted her to live in the wreckage of a life that was never truly hers, a life she now realized was merely on loan. Every struggle, every desperate attempt to cling to fragments of her past would only serve to prove his point, his power, his absolute crushing control. She would become a cautionary tale whispered in hushed tones, a living monument to the cost of defiance. She would be an unperson, a non-entity, her very memory painstakingly expunged from all but a select few who would be forced to remember her as a ghost, a warning. And this isn't just about some distant, shadowy figure like Zhang. This is about the subtle currents that define your choices every single day. The algorithms that shape your perception, the financial systems that dictate your mobility, the social constructs that define your worth. You think you're free? You think you're making independent decisions? Ask yourself, how much of your identity, your security, your very sense of belonging is tied to systems that can be pulled out from under you with shocking speed and impunity? This is the uncomfortable truth. Many of us are living under invisible leases, just like Vanessa. Our perceived autonomy is often nothing more than a temporary privilege granted by forces we rarely acknowledge, let alone comprehend. And the moment we challenge the unspoken rules, the moment we attempt to assert true agency, well, that's when the Titan might just turn its gaze, very, very calmly turn its gaze towards you. The game is never truly about individuals. It's always about the message, and Vanessa's message was about to be broadcast, loud and clear, in the form of her spectacular, agonizing downfall. A warning shot fired into the heart of anyone who dared to forget their place. Her erasure would echo louder than any scream. A testament to a power so vast, so encompassing, it makes your skin crawl. You think you're safe? Think again. The greatest trick the powerful ever pulled wasn't making you believe in freedom. It was making you forget the chains were always there, just invisible. We obsess over grand conspiracies, over shadowy figures in dark rooms, yet we ignore the glaring truth. The control is baked into the very fabric of our lives. It's in the algorithms feeding you curated realities, shaping your desires before you even articulate them. It's in the financial scaffolding that elevates some to godlike status while condemning others to perpetual struggle, all under the guise of meritocracy. Don't fool yourself. Merit is a story told by the victors. Power isn't about who tries hardest. It's about who writes the rules, who owns the board, who controls the pieces. Look at the political theater. A grand spectacle of opposing ideologies, isn't it? Heated debates, passionate rhetoric. But beneath the surface, the fundamental parameters rarely shift. The core power structures, the corporate behemoths, the military-industrial complex, they remain untouched, immutable. We argue about the color of the curtains while the foundation of the house crumbles, or, more accurately, is meticulously reinforced by unseen hands. This is the Machiavellian genius, distracting the masses with trivialities while the true levers of power are manipulated with surgical precision. It's a dance, a meticulously choreographed ballet of illusion designed to keep you feeling like an active participant, even as your role is pre-written. You pick your team, you cheer your champion, but the stadium, the ball, the rules, they're all owned by the same entity. And they don't care who wins, as long as you keep buying tickets. Will you ever truly own anything of significance? I doubt it. Not in the way your grandparents might have conceived ownership. Today, everything is a service. Your software, your car, your music, even your identity itself is increasingly reliant on centralized platforms. We're moving towards a world of perpetual tenancy where access replaces ownership. You rent your life, you lease your existence, and when you lease, the landlord always holds the ultimate power. They can evict you. They can change the terms. They can revoke access to your very memories, your digital footprint, your social standing with a mere flick of a switch. We call this platform risk in the corporate world, but for the individual, it's existential risk. It's the power to make you a ghost in the machine, to unperson you without a single bullet fired. Just a login disabled, an account deleted. Remember Vanessa? Her story wasn't an anomaly. It was a magnification of what happens to everyone, albeit on a far grander, more brutal scale when they defy the invisible architects. Her sin wasn't malice, it was independence. Her crime was trying to carve out a space that wasn't pre-approved, pre-measured, pre-allocated. That kind of self-assertion, that spark of genuine autonomy, it's a direct threat to a system built on passive compliance. Systems demand obedience. They thrive on predictability. Any deviation is an anomaly that must be corrected or purged. And what about your choices? You scroll, you click, you buy. You think you're exercising free will. But how many of those choices are truly yours? How many are the product of sophisticated nudges, behavioral economics applied with weaponized precision? The algorithms don't just suggest things. They engineer desire. They map your vulnerabilities, your insecurities, your aspirations, and then they feed you solutions, always proprietary, always reinforcing the existing order. Your entire consumer landscape is a curated garden, carefully tended to by unseen hands, where every path leads back to their gate. You don't pick the fruit. You pick from the fruit they allow to grow. This isn't freedom. This is a very comfortable cage, exquisitely designed to feel like infinite possibility. Perhaps you find this cynical, too bleak. I'm telling you, this isn't cynicism, it's clarity. It's looking at the world not as we wish it were, but as it operates. It's seeing the strings, not just the puppets. The powerful don't broadcast their intentions. They enact them through the subtle, insidious manipulation of context. They redefine what's normal, what's desirable, what's even possible. They control the narrative. They control the tools. They control the flow of information. And control of information, in this digital age, is control of reality itself, your reality, my reality. So, when the Titan turns its gaze, it's not just a person it's looking at. It's an entire ecosystem of control asserting its dominance. It's a reaffirmation of the hierarchy. It's a reminder that beneath the veneer of individual freedom, there is an unyielding, often brutal, structure of power that tolerates no true dissent. It crushes it, silently, efficiently, and if you're lucky, you only see the wreckage from a distance, never realizing how close you are to the blast radius. The true genius of these systems is their ability to make you complicit in your own subjugation. You volunteer your data, you agree to the terms and conditions you never read. You embrace the convenience that quietly erodes your privacy. You trade autonomy for comfort, freedom for security. A Faustian bargain struck not with some devil in a dark alley, but with shiny apps and seamless services. It's the sweet poison of technological progress, isn't it? Each innovation, each new comfort, often comes with a hidden cost, another layer of control, another thread in the web. And the cost of defiance? Look at history. Every revolutionary, every iconoclast, every truth-teller who truly threatened the established order met with either brutal suppression or insidious co-option. They become martyrs, or they become palatable. Rarely do they dismantle the entire apparatus. Because the apparatus is too vast, too deeply ingrained. It's a hydra. You cut off one head, two more emerge, often stronger, more cunning. That's the cold, hard logic of power. It adapts. It learns. It weaponizes the very tools of resistance. You want to organize online? Great. Now they have all your data. You want to spread a counter-narrative? Fantastic. Now they can track its virality, identify its nodes, and then inject their own counter-narrative far more effectively. This isn't about blaming the individual. This is about understanding the game. The rules are asymmetrical, always have been. The individual against the institution, against the system, against the Titan is a battle often lost before it even begins. Your courage, your ideals, your sheer force of will, they are pebbles against a mountain. And the mountain doesn't care about your pebbles. It only cares about its own stability, its continued existence, its unchallenged reign. This is the reality behind the curtain, the gears grinding beneath the polished surface of society, a world where power dynamics explain everything, where every interaction, every policy, every cultural trend is ultimately a reflection of who holds the strings and how tightly they choose to pull. So, the next time you feel a surge of independence, a desire to truly chart your own course, pause. Look around. Notice the subtle fences, the invisible tripwires, the gentle nudges guiding you back to the pre-approved path. Are you truly deviating, or merely wandering through a carefully constructed maze designed to give you the illusion of choice? Most of us, myself included, are still walking that maze. The difference lies in whether we acknowledge its walls. The true power players aren't interested in violence, not anymore. Violence is messy, inefficient. They prefer the quiet, bloodless victories, the psychological victories, the victories where you choose to stay within the confines because the alternative feels too terrifying, too lonely, too erased. Vanessa's story, then, isn't just a cautionary tale for those who stand up. It's a mirror for all of us, reflecting the invisible shackles we willingly, often unknowingly, wear. And the Titan? It's just watching, always watching, waiting to see who forgets their place next. But how does it enforce this? It doesn't need to brandish a sword. No. The true genius lies in cultivating a pervasive, bone-deep fear that you might be next. Think about the 1950s. Here in America, everyone was paranoid. Reds under every bed, right? But the reality wasn't about actual spies in every cul-de-sac. It was about compliance. It was about turning neighbors into informants, friends into suspects. People burned books, denounced colleagues, sacrificed careers. For what? To save a freedom that was being systematically dismantled by the very process they were participating in. You don't need gulags when people build their own cages. That's the game, friend. The Titan doesn't want to break you. It wants you to break yourself. It wants you to choose silence, choose conformity, choose the safe, bland path. Because a coerced choice feels less like slavery, doesn't it? You'll tell yourself you're smart, you're pragmatic, you're just playing the long game. Don't lie. You're just scared. And that fear, that's its finest weapon. More potent than any bomb, more effective than any prison wall. It resides right there, behind your eyes. A tiny, constant whisper of what if. That whisper keeps you in line, keeps the machine running. It ensures the pre-approved path looks not only palatable, but often the only rational choice. Look at the data they collect. Not for better services. Never that simple. They map your desires, your anxieties, your breaking points. They know precisely which levers to pull to make you think their way is your way. This isn't manipulation in the old sense. It's a complete re-engineering of your perception of reality. A psychic coup fought not on battlefields, but inside your head. And the terrifying part. Most people actively assist in their own conditioning. They share. They validate, they amplify the very chains that bind them, believing they are building community. You watch the influencers, chasing trends, mimicking behaviors. You believe you're expressing individuality, don't you? No, you're just a cog, polished and painted, but a cog nonetheless, in a vast, self-perpetuating illusion. And the illusion holds because it offers comfort. It offers belonging. It offers an escape from the crushing responsibility of true, unadulterated freedom. Because freedom, real freedom, it's terrifying, it's lonely, and it often costs you everything. This is why the system doesn't need walls. It builds labyrinths. Labyrinths you eagerly explore, convinced each turn is your own initiative, a personal triumph. But every path, every vista, every supposed shortcut was laid out long before you ever took your first hesitant step. You celebrate your choices, don't you? You tell yourself you're an individual, a free thinker, a critical voice. Delusional. You are a meticulously groomed participant in a grand, intricate performance, one where the audience believes they are the playwrights. The Titan doesn't fear your rage. It doesn't even care about your occasional, impotent defiance. No. It fears your silence breaking, your eyes truly opening to the invisible architecture of your reality. It fears the moment you realize the true cost of your engineered piece. And that cost? It's not just your voice, it's your soul. A slow, insidious erosion of your capacity for genuine thought, for inconvenient truth. You become accustomed to the echoes in the chamber, mistaking them for original ideas. Now consider this. What happens when every solution presented to you comes from the same source that manufactured the problem? You become a hamster on a wheel, exhausted by the effort of running, yet never truly moving. The endless debates, the culture wars, the performative outrage, they are all designed to keep you distracted, divided, and utterly dependent on the very structures you pretend to critique. You think you're fighting for justice, for equality? You are merely engaging in the ritualized, sanctioned aggression that reinforces the boundaries of your permissible thought. It's a beautifully perverse design. The illusion of conflict maintains true harmony for the few who actually wield power. So, here's the stark, brutal truth. There is no escaping the cage when the cage is made of your own desires, fears, and the comforting lies you tell yourself. The ultimate power isn't in physical chains. It's in the psychological mastery that convinces you to forge those chains yourself, then wear them proudly as symbols of your so-called freedom. The system doesn't force you into conformity. It simply makes true non-conformity so terrifyingly expensive, so agonizingly lonely that almost no one dares pay the price. And that, my friend, is the secret. That is the genius. The verdict, then, is simple, and it's devastating. You are not free. You are a finely tuned instrument in an orchestra you don't even know exists, playing the notes written for you by unseen hands. Your freedom is merely the freedom to choose which specific illusion to live within. The true power players have long since transcended the crude mechanics of tyranny. They have perfected the art of cultivating willing servitude. And so, the final thought that should truly chill you to the bone. The greatest trick ever played wasn't making you believe the devil didn't exist. It was making you believe you were free, while every breath you take, every thought you entertain, every dream you chase is, in some fundamental way, a precisely calibrated response to a world meticulously designed for your compliant participation. The question is not whether you can break free. The question is whether you ever truly wanted to. Because here is the final, unvarnished truth. Your struggle is their stability, your anger, their entertainment. You are not a rebel. You are a programmed cog in a magnificent, self-sustaining machine built from your own perceived choices. Freedom, my friend, is a fantasy. It always was. The ultimate victory for those pulling the strings was not just making you subservient. It was making you love your chains, making you defend them. So, as the credits roll on this particular illusion, look around you, really look, and ask yourself, honestly, who are you truly serving? And what will you do with the terrifying knowledge that the door was never locked because you never dared to push it? The cold, hard truth is this. The architects of this reality don't care about your liberation. They never did. Your compliance is their currency, your dreams, their fertile ground for exploitation. You were designed not to be broken, but to be utilized, an unwitting fuel source for an engine of control so vast, so intricate, you cannot even perceive its full scope. So, what now? Do you rage against the machine, or do you finally accept the game for what it is? The ultimate rebellion, perhaps, is simply seeing the puppeteer's strings without flinching, understanding that the illusion holds power only as long as you refuse to acknowledge its precise, deliberate construction. The choice isn't freedom or captivity. It's awareness or perpetual blissful ignorance. Sleep well, evading willing servitude. And so, the final thought that should truly chill you to the bone. The greatest trick ever played wasn't making you believe the devil didn't exist. It was making you believe you were free, while every breath you take, every thought you entertain, every dream you chase is, in some fundamental way, a precisely calibrated response to a world meticulously designed for your compliant participation. The question is not whether you can break free. The question is whether you ever truly wanted to. Because here is the final, unvarnished truth. Your struggle is their stability, your anger, their entertainment. You are not a rebel. You are a programmed cog in a magnificent, self-sustaining machine built from your own perceived choices. Freedom, my friend, is a fantasy. It always was. The ultimate victory for those pulling the strings was not just making you subservient, it was making you love your chains, making you defend them. So, as the credits roll on this particular illusion, look around you. Really look. And ask yourself, honestly, who are you truly serving, and what will you do with the terrifying knowledge that the door was never locked, because you never dared to push it? The cold, hard truth is this: the architects of this reality don't care about your liberation. They never did. Your compliance is their currency, your dreams their fertile ground for exploitation. You were designed not to be broken, but to be utilized, an unwitting fuel source for an engine of control so vast, so intricate, you cannot even perceive its full scope. So, what now? Do you rage against the machine, or do you finally accept the game for what it is? The ultimate rebellion, perhaps, is simply seeing the puppeteer's strings without flinching, understanding that the illusion holds power only as long as you refuse to acknowledge its precise, deliberate construction. The choice isn't freedom or captivity. It's awareness or perpetual, blissful ignorance. Sleep well, because the truth, the one that gnaws at your gut even now, is this: the puppeteers don't need your unawareness. They need your participation, your quiet despair, your knowing compliance. What does it matter if you see the strings, if your hands are still tied? You want to break free? Foolish. Power isn't dismantled, it's reconfigured, transferred. You thought awakening made you a warrior. Instead, it makes you a tragic oracle, screaming truths no one can hear, trapped in the structure you now perceive. There is no escape, only different levels of engagement. This isn't a game you win. It's the only game there is. You're playing it, every single day. The final curtain never falls. It merely reopens, revealing the exact same stage, you still performing your role. The show, my friend, must go on, always.